After going over what killers you should be prioritizing if you want to get most out of your currency in the last video, it only makes sense to also go over what survivors you should unlock first, doesn't it? Especially after the incredible amount of support you all gave me, along with everyone requesting a survivor version. Thank you so much. Here it is. Much like last video, I'll be splitting everyone into 3 separate categories. The Auric cell tier, which are survivors you can only buy with real money, the Iridescent Shard tier, which includes survivors you can unlock by just playing the game, and the Bloodpoint tier, which includes characters everyone has unlocked from the start. At the end, I'll also throw in some must-have perks that are stuck on some characters that generally have weaker perks. Starting off with the survivors you're able to earn with shards through just playing the game. I think for a lot of you, it won't come as a surprise that I'm putting Kate at number 1. She has one of the most useful beginner perks called Windows of Opportunity. This perk shows the aura of pellets and windows within a 32-meter range, which is incredibly useful for anyone who is still learning the game. Not only does it help newer players learn where to run during a chase, it also comes in handy for anyone who has been playing for longer by showing which pellets have not been used yet, so you'll never run into a death zone. Boil over makes the killer sway almost double the amount whenever they pick you up. It also progresses your wiggle meter a bit whenever the killer drops down while they carry you, along with hiding hooks from them within 60 meters, making it so they often walk further than they have to, giving you more time to wiggle free. While boil over definitely isn't part of the meta, it's just one of those perks that will always have the chance to help you out massively by just slapping it on whenever you don't have anything better yet. Dance with me isn't all that great though, especially on its own. Whenever you perform a rushed action like vaulting through a window, your scratch marks are hidden for 3 seconds. Since this will still create a loud noise notification for the killer, this perk is only really useful when paired up with something else like light to give you a speed boost afterwards, or quick and quiet to hide the noise notification as well. Moving on, we've got Zarena. I was really hesitating between Kate and Zarena when it came to the top spot because Of the Record is just such a strong perk, especially for newer players. Whenever you're unhooked, you will be completely quiet for 80 seconds and the killer won't be able to read any of your aura during that time. More importantly though, you also gain the endurance status effect. You know how when you get unhooked, if the killer hits you within seconds after, you don't go down and instead have to mend? This perk essentially extends that timer to 80 seconds for as long as you don't do a conspicuous action like doing a generator or healing someone else. This means it's very useful for protecting you against getting chased right off the hook, potentially buying you and your team a lot of extra time. For the people, it's also a very good perk. Whenever you're healthy, you can instantly heal someone else at the cost of injuring yourself. This can be very useful if you want to protect someone that's on their last hook state, for example. You can also use it to instantly pick someone up off the ground, and there's currently an incredibly busted combination with Buckle Up that gives both you and the picked up person 10 seconds of endurance right after, but you didn't hear that from me. Keep in mind you will get the broken status for 60 seconds after, so use it carefully. Our last perk, Red Herring Fish perk, isn't great, but it's overall just a very funny perk. After repairing a generator for 3 seconds, enter a locker and the killer will see a loud noise notification pop up on the generator you touched. You can use this to distract him, or if you feel particularly evil, plant Jill's Blast Mine on the generator and watch the killer's eyes get destroyed as they kick it. This one might be a hot take, but next up we've got Yui. The reason I put Yui as the 3rd character in the Shards tier is because she has, in my opinion, one of the most underrated survivor perks, especially for newer players, along with 2 other perks that are also quite useful despite not being meta. Lucky Break hides your scratch marks and pools of blood for a full minute after getting hit. Use this to your advantage by breaking line of sight as much as you can after getting hit, and oftentimes the killer will completely lose you as they struggle to find you after wiping their weapon during their cooldown animation. Its effect lasts until the timer runs out, until you go down, or until you're fully healed. Especially for newer players who don't really know how to loot bill yet, this can waste a lot of the killer's time by making them either have to look for you or one of your teammates all over again. While Lucky Break won't always work in open areas, pair it up with either Iron Will, which softens your groans, or Overcome, which speeds you up for longer after getting hit, just for when you want to get even more value out of it. On top of that, for every second you heal someone else, you'll get 1 second of Lucky Break back. So make sure someone else is always healing you first, because if you do it the other way around, you won't get your seconds back. Breakout can also be very fun to use, especially if you like to save your friends and sabotage hooks. Whenever you're within 5 meters of someone being carried, you get 7% faster, helping you bait and dodge hits, all while helping your friend wiggle out 25% faster. Lastly, Any Means Necessary lets you pick up down pellets. This perk can either be very handy if the killer you're facing is ignoring pellets, but can be completely useless if they destroy every pellet you drop. Moving on to the honorable mentions and final 2 survivors you can unlock by simply playing the game. We've got Fang and Nia. This might come as a surprise to some, as these are often the first survivors people will recommend due to them both having an exhaustion perk. Exhaustion perks are still one of the best perks in the game to this day. They help you get more distance at the cost of of a long cooldown. That said, while I think Nia and Fang are both good picks, I think there's a better exhaustion perk you can get for free, which I will mention when talking about the free tier later in the video. Nia's balanced landing lets you sprint at 150% speed for 3 seconds after falling from 4 meters or more, while Fang's Lithe gives you the same speed boost after rush vaulting a window. Balanced also reduces the stagger from falling by 75%, as well as removing any sound you normally make while you fall. Like I said before, making distance and buying more time by extending your chases is one of the most important things which both of these perks will help with. While both of them are great, they can also be somewhat map dependent. Trying to get away mid-chase but the window is positioned towards the edge of the map, need a speed boost from balanced landing but the only hill is on the other side of the map, unlucky. Just try keeping those things in mind while you find your pathing during chase, and they can both help you out massively. Nia Streetwise lets you be more efficient with items, letting you use them for longer, while Urban Evasion lets you crouch at walking speed, helping you stealth around more easily. Fang's Alert shows you the killer's aura for 5 seconds whenever they perform a break action, like kicking a pallet, door, or generator. I'd say this perk is actually pretty underrated, as you'll be seeing exactly where the killer is for a big chunk of the trial. That said, Technician is horrible. It lets you repair generators more quietly, and you won't notify the killer if you miss a skill check, on top of decreasing the generator's progress with an additional 3% on top of the usual 10% when you do. You would think this is at least somewhat good for newer players, but the additional penalty is completely unnecessary, as the effect isn't already that amazing anyways, and even newer players get used to hitting at least good skill checks very quickly. Next up, we have got the Auric cell tier, meaning you can only buy these characters with real money. Lauri is easily at the very top of this list, especially after the recent Decisive Strike buff. This perk is incredibly strong in so many different ways. The moment you get unhooked, a 60-second timer starts. If within that time the killer grabs you, a skill check pops up. If you hit that, you will stun them for 5 seconds, giving you a second chance at getting chased, essentially offering you an extra life. While this perk can only be used once, basically having an extra hook state like that is incredibly useful, as it buys you and your team extra time, whether you're good at looping or not. It is also very useful when it comes to protecting you from being tunneled, especially in a Swift, as you can tell your friends they don't need to come and protect you, leaving them extra time to complete the generators. Does the killer not come after you? Well, don't worry, there's always the option to use it aggressively. Be as obnoxious as you can, taking protection hits or blocking doorways, and they have no choice but to focus on you. Decisive isn't the only good perk though. Objective Obsession has to be one of my favorite perks in the game. Do you like letting your teammates know whether the killer can see them or not with aura reading perks, or do you like just keeping an eye on the killer yourself? Then this is the perk for you. Anytime the killer can see your aura, whether it's through perks, powers, or add-ons, you will be able to see theirs. Not only is it super handy to see where the killer is, knowing when the killer can see you can keep you on your toes and ready to move yourself to a safer spot. Not only that, but if you know a little bit about perks, you can also use this to give your teammates a heads up on which perks the killer is using. Does Object activate after the killer hooks someone? They might have Barbecue. You see the killer at the start of the game, they're probably running Lethal Pursuer. And that's not even all, because if you happen to be the Obsession, you'll see the killer's aura every 30 seconds. Of course, this also means they'll see yours, so be careful, but you can prepare for this by paying attention to the timer. For this reason, I would recommend only running this perk if you're either confident in running the killer, or at least if you'd like to get better at getting chased, because you're gonna be getting chased. Soul Survivor is another very bad perk. It hides your aura for 24 meters around you for every teammate that is out of the game. The wording on this perk is a little bit confusing, but what they mean is that whenever the killer is within 24 meters of you, and then 24 meters for every stack on top of that, they won't see your aura, but whenever they're outside of that, they will. When you're the last survivor remaining, you repair generators 75% faster and open the gate and hatch 50% faster. The thing is, this perk relies on your teammates dying and does nothing for you if you're playing well. That said, it can come in handy for tome challenges that need you to escape through the hatch or lets you win gate duels more easily, but this is obviously pretty niche. Nancy from Stranger Things also has 2 very solid perks. Fixated lets you see your own scratch marks, which is very nice, but more importantly, it lets you walk 20% faster. 20% doesn't sound like a lot, but you can definitely feel it. The amount of times this perk has come in clutch as I'm circling around a rock that a killer is checking behind. Her best perk, in my opinion, is Inner Strength. I'm often of the opinion that medkits are the best item in the game as they let you heal yourself, but sometimes you just want or need to use something else. And sometimes you just want to run a build around totems. And in both cases, Inner Strength is really useful. Whenever you break a totem, this perk activates. Hide in a locker for 8 seconds while injured and you'll quickly become healthy once again. You'll never really see much use out of her last perk, which is Better Together. The generator you're working on glows yellow for your team within 32 meters, and whenever someone is downed, you'll see the other survivors for 10 seconds. Firstly, why is the generator yellow? There's a dozen other perks that make generators grow yellow, so no one is going to go figure out that, this Bill is running Better Together, let me help him. Seeing your team for 10 seconds can be kind of neat, but other perks like Bond and Kindred do this much more consistently, and if you're in a Swift, this won't do anything in the first place. Last up, we have got Rebecca. Reassurance is by far the best anti-camping perk in the game. Whenever you get within 6 meters of a hooked survivor, press your ability button to pause their hook timer for 30 seconds. This buys you extra time, letting your team work on generators for longer and assuring the hooked person doesn't hit the next hook state, unless they absolutely have to. Even more crazy about this perk is that it can be used once every time someone gets hooked, per survivor. That means if multiple people are running this, you can buy up to 2 extra minutes per hook stage. It's truly a camper's worst nightmare, and you'll easily be able to finish every gen this way when they do. That said though, it's pretty hard to use effectively in solo queue. You'll often get stuck in situations where their whole team is hovering around the camping killer, creating a useless situation even if reassurance is used, because no one is making use of the extra time that it's buying. If you play with people who know what they're doing, or you're in a Swift, then this perk can definitely come in super handy. Hyper Focus is one of the best perks in the game overall, but it's also incredibly difficult to use effectively. Every great skill check you hit in a row will increase your chance to get another, which will move faster and grant you 30 bonus progress for your generator each time, up to a total of almost 3% per great skill check you hit. That said, great skill checks are already hard to hit on their own, but this perk increases their speed, making it very tough to hit them consecutively. If you are able to hit these though, you do generators very fast, because keep in mind, aside from giving you extra speed, it also increases the chance of getting a skill check. Pairing this up with something like Stakeout, which will automatically do great skill checks for you, or Toolboxes, which increases the chance of getting skill checks even further, is also a great idea. Better Than New is pretty bad. You give others a 16% boost to a lot of things that aren't repairing, and it only lasts until they are injured again. 16% repairing speed? Now, that would have been a lot, but 16% speed towards anything else is not really worth wasting a perk slot on. We have finally reached the free tier, meaning these are characters everyone has unlocked from the start. Surprisingly, there's a lot of useful perks in here. At the very top of this tier, we have got Meg. Meg used to be the one who I started out with, as she has by far the strongest perks out of the free characters. Adrenaline is one of the best perks in the game as well, automatically healing you and giving you a speed boost as soon as the last generator gets completed. This perk is great for many reasons. Currently getting chased while your team completes the final gen, speed boost out of there. Injured as well, you are now healthy. Maybe you're injured but your teammate is occupying the killer, forget wasting your time on healing, just do that final gen and simultaneously get healed as it pops. They recently changed it so it doesn't work off the hook anymore, but regardless, it's still one of the best perks in the game. Quick and Quiet is also very useful, although on its own it's not amazing. This perk is able to hide a loud noise notification every 20 seconds, meaning you can vault or hide in a locker quickly without the killer hearing you do it. This perk has synergy with so many other perks. Want to lose the killer? Slap something like Lithe on your build, which lets you sprint away after vaulting, or Dance With Me, which hides your scratch marks after vaulting. And if you do this out of line of sight, then the killer will have to take a few seconds before realizing where you just went. Last but definitely not least, we have got Sprint Burst. Remember how earlier in the video I mentioned another exhaustion perk that I thought was better? This is the one. Whenever you start running, Sprint Burst activates and increases your speed to 150% for 3 seconds. The reason I personally think this is the best exhaustion perk currently in the game, maybe aside from background player, but we don't talk about that, is because there is no condition tied to it besides the cooldown that all other exhaustion perks have as well. Generator stuck in a dead zone? No worries, Sprint Burst. Notice that stealth killer too late? Sprint Burst. Get unhooked in front of the killer? Want a flashlight save? Sprint Burst. Admittedly, it can be a bit difficult to understand how to use it, but it's so worth to learn what to do with this perk. A very big mistake newer players make is holding onto their Sprint Burst for too long, walking everywhere and wasting a lot of time. Sure, if you spawn next to a generator, take those few extra steps to hold onto it, but a 40-second cooldown isn't all that long and often won't matter that much since it quickly goes down anyways unless you're in chase. The reason Sprint Burst is so strong is because it gives you the choice of where to begin your chase, and it makes it so you almost never get caught in an unsafe place if you know where to run. A very neat trick you can do by paying attention to your exhaustion timer is something called 99ing your Sprint Burst. Lower your exhaustion until it's almost fully gone, then start running. Sprint burst won't activate, but you'll be able to stop running for half a second and sprint away whenever you'd like to, giving you the option to use it without having to walk everywhere. Claudette is the person you should level if you like to heal others. She has by far the best healing perk in the game called Bodily Knowledge, which lets you heal 50% faster, whether that's yourself or someone else. Keep in mind that it does empty medkits 20% faster, making it so that you can't heal yourself with a medkit anymore unless you use add-ons. Empathy is also a great perk, showing you the aura of injured survivors within 128 meters, which is basically the entire map. This perk helps greatly in finding people who need to be healed. Lastly, we've got self-care, and self-care is self-care. You can heal yourself at 35% of the usual speed, which is very slow. Don't get me wrong, this perk does have its use and it's nice to be able to heal yourself, but the biggest mistake people make is using it to heal yourself in a corner for 46 seconds while you could just be healed by a teammate or a medkit instead. In my killer perk video, I noticed I failed to mention quite some perks that were actually very useful. I didn't talk about these perks as my video was meant to help newer players spend their currency in exchange for as much value as possible. So in this video, I would like to rapidly mention some perks that are incredibly useful, but that are usually the only good perk on a character, so you can decide for yourself whether it's worth it or not. Twice Bond lets you see the aura of all survivors within 36 meters, and Bill's Unbreakable lets you recover faster, but more importantly, lets you pick yourself up from the ground. Renata's Background Player is the fastest and longest exhaustion perk in the game. It activates whenever the killer picks someone up and helps greatly with saving your teammates. David's Death Art is another exhaustion perk. It activates after getting unhooked, letting you take an extra hit while injured if you time it right. Press the ability button and for half a second you'll be invincible, but puts you in the deep wound if you get hit. Adam's Deliverance lets you unhook yourself after you safely unhook a teammate. This isn't great in solo queue as people will try to rescue you regardless since they won't know you have this perk. Behavior adds the ability to see a teammate's loadouts, please. But when you're playing with friends, it can be incredibly useful if no one has to come save you. Jeff's Distortion is another great perk. It hides your aura up to 3 times whenever the killer tries to see it, refilling for extra uses whenever you spend time in their terror radius. In that way, it can kinda have the same effect as Object of Obsession from Laurie. See the perk counter go down? The killer just tried to read your aura, letting you figure out what perk or add-on they just tried to use if you're clever. Sable's perk Invocation Weaving Spiders lets you betray. My last video on the channel went over the exact same idea as this video, but for killers instead. So if you still need some perks to add to your collection, check out the video in the end card. And as always, have a wonderful day.